Good evening, fellow Lincoln Geeks and Geekettes. And welcome to episode 7 of Let's Talk Board Games. Chris is normally in the hot seat, but today you've got the lovely Giorgio because Mr. Chris decided to go and spawn. So he's
reproduced.
Nice rest with some parental leave. I do believe he's probably watching along, but didn't have time to cover everything with us all today, but I'm sure we will cope with it.
It's understandable. Tiny humans are very time-consuming. I'm aware of this.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Dan. But they do get better, I'm told, so I'm sure he will be back within due course. But in the meantime, a big, massive shout-out to Ben Cooper-Meyer for being our special guest tonight to talk about his game, Foul Play. And whilst we may not have some of the wackier features that we had last time due to cats, spawning, we will have all the usual favourites as we talk about all our games. We are looking for a new sponsor at the moment. So if you or anyone you know out there wants to sponsor the channel, do get in touch with us at Diary of Lincoln Geek at gmail.com. So without further ado, I will introduce our lovely guest, Ben Cooper-Meyer from After Dark Murder Mysteries, to talk about their game, Foul Play.
Hi, Ben.
So, Ben. Hello. Ben. From what you told us earlier in the week, this was very much sort of a bit of a side project from what you normally do. So I think we've got a lovely little video for everyone to introduce Foul Play. But, do you want to say a few words, say hello first?
Yeah, well, the basic premise behind us doing this was we're an events company and we ended up with no events, so we needed to diversify. And every other murder mystery event company was doing the online things, and we thought, well, we need something different to that to stand out. So we ended up with the card game.
Excellent. Well, why don't we show them all a bit what it's about? So yes, short and sweet. So we've been very kindly, of course, give us a couple of copies ahead of time, and I know the review is coming out on Monday. Gregor, you've probably played this the most. What do your questions have you got for Ben?
Do we still have Gregor?
I think we do still have Gregor.
Oh, you're muted, Gregor. You're silent. Speak louder. Oh, are you good at lip reading, Ben?
No, apparently not.
Mime, I can do mime. We do a lot of.
Maybe Gregor needs to do interpretive dance. No, he's gone.
Dance. Well, in the meantime, whilst Gregor is sorting technology issues,
he's been lost to the abyss. It was nice knowing you, Gregor.
So Foul Play. How did you find the experience of creating a card game when you've not done anything like this before?
Easy, then harder and harder. The creative side is the really easy part, and then you get into the everything else. So coming up with the idea was based on a live show that we do, so that was quite easy. The kind of puzzle level of it was then just adapting it to be a game. But then once we did that, then it was sourcing everything, the manufacturers and the license, the legislation, the safety stuff. That's where things started to get trickier and trickier. And one of the things that we didn't foresee, which we should have foreseen, was that because of lockdown, as you'll probably know, but the board gaming and tabletop industry has rocketed. Everybody's buying games.
Yeah.
So the manufacturers then were like, "Oh yeah, we can make you get the first run we got of it." They were like, "Yeah, I'll be with you in a month." The second run we got of it, it was like, "Oh, it's getting a bit busy. It'll be 3 months." The run that we're just about to do now will take about 6 to 8 months, and that's because the manufacturers are so busy. So
yeah, so between that and shipping issues, where they've got stuff backlogged waiting for shipping, doesn't help.
Yeah, we didn't get. I mean, I know China's got a big issue at the moment. We've got we didn't get the game done in China, but we've got some dinosaurs in China that we're currently having issues getting over to us because of the shipping issues.
Excellent. So say after that murder mysteries, obviously you normally do the murder mystery events in person. I say with the transition to the card games, presumably you've got a lot more to add to the repertoire in the future of converting other ones.
Yeah, well, we've basically got 3 on 3 in the works for Foul Play, so 3 different versions of Foul Play to tie in with the live events. Because irrespective of whether it's going to be popular in the wider world, we have a revenue stream through our audiences anyway, so as merchandising. So we'll use these 3 basic shows and ideas and themes. Plus, we created now a live event based on the card game. So there's now Foul Play Live, which is now currently looking. We did a big marketing push on that to a lot of venues because it's a big outdoor event mainly. So now venues are booking that. So it's kind of worked in our favour that way around.
How much does the live event resemble the card game, if at all?
The mechanics of it are exactly the same. So, for example, Manor House Murder, the difference is that naturally you don't play a game. So in the Manor House, in the grounds of the Manor House, for example, are famous detectives, or parodies thereof, Sherlock, Poirot, Marple, and they're all over the place. And each of them has a clue that they can give you. But in order to get that clue from them, you've got to complete some kind of task or mission for them. And then they'll go back and they'll get the clue. And that's where it kind of resembles the end, because it's just one clue. So the suspect wears glasses or whatever from the game. But then in order to work out, also hidden around the venue are the suspect cards. So they don't know what the suspects look like. They also have to find what the suspects look like to ultimately find the clues to. So that mechanic is very similar. Finding the suspects, finding the evidence to ultimately work out who did it. Plus, we've added extra characters into the live event.
Yes.
Yeah. I imagine it's a lot more difficult though, because like in a card game, you know it's in the deck, whereas it's in a live version, it's in a physical space somewhere.
Yeah, the team, because this one it's kind of targeted as a family event, so the team are pretty good at knowing how to target. So if you see somebody coming towards you frustrated, going, "I only found 4 suspects that have glasses on," and you know that there's 5. Then you kind of have to question them in character and go, "Oh, which ones have you found? Who have you not found?" And then kind of point them in the right direction so they don't feel very frustrated and just leave going, "It was impossible to do." So you do help them without hopefully them realizing you're helping them.
I just want to point out, I like how both the suspects are wearing glasses. Just want to point out 2 of us are quite suspicious right now, to be fair.
You might have noticed before we started, I took mine off as well.
Oh, no. Well, I'm obviously innocent. See? Sorry, Jeff. Not sus at all. It sounds really fun, and I love the theme. I love that kind of murder mystery Cluedo themes. I haven't played the game, though, I do confess. I'll have to borrow it off one of these guys one time.
Yes, yeah, so
I
do like is the remote play rules that you did create for the game.
Once the world's back to normal.
What was that? Sorry, George.
Well, I do like the remote play. That you have rules for playing the game remotely, which obviously is a bit of a requirement in these day and age if you want to play more than just with your family. So yeah. How was that going through development?
Face Crime. That was when because we launched in November, so we started work on it early 2020. February, March. No, it would have been March because that's when lockdown happened. So March, we were immediately on it, and then we managed to launch in November as we were coming out of lockdown. And so then we immediately went back into lockdown, and everyone was like, can you play it online? And we were like, no, there's no online rules. So we had to come up with online rules very quickly, which we did, as you can see. And so we launched that as a side thing. So a game that was originally supposed to just be one version has now ended up being 3 versions.
Nice. I say, with the other 2 versions obviously being Good Cop and Bad Cop.
Yeah, it was only supposed to be Good Cop originally, but then we realised it could be played as Bad Cop, and so we added it in.
I personally prefer the Bad Cop version. I think it's a lot more challenging. It's a lot more interesting. And I think we mentioned this when we spoke briefly on Wednesday, but it definitely it worked okay 2-player, but I can see it would be even more challenging, even more scheming with multiple players when we're allowed to congregate in large groups again. What a fantastic! I cannot agree more with the comment.
That is a total lie.
Yes.
I don't wear glasses. I can't be sus, Siri.
Yeah, but you're the one who pointed it out. So
I'll say he who points the finger.
Your own innocence, and that is never a good thing.
They're on to me.
But yeah, it's absolutely something that when I can meet with people face to face again in the comfort of my own home or someone else's, I'm definitely going to give it a go again with more players and see how it plays out.
When we did the test plays, especially on Bad Cop, there was 5 of us, so which is the maximum kind of player count you can have. And we played Bad Cop, and we thought we were going to have to change it because we nearly never ended. The game never ended. It carried on and on and on because everyone was so scheming. And because there's 5 of you in play and it's 7 cards each, and you've got the crime scene, pretty much every card was in play. There was only about 3 cards in the discard pile at any given point. So there was always a block card in play, which meant whenever anyone wanted to go, I want to accuse, somebody else would invariably block. But what it ended up doing was meaning that people started to scheme to ensure that they had the block card or try and steal it before they made the accusation. But we did put a proviso on the web rules, which states if you want a quicker game, remove the block card after the first play. Otherwise, you could be going for, I think our game was 1 hour and 20 minutes until somebody finally managed to out-scheme and win that one.
Yes, I say the block cards I would say in lower play counts they don't come up that often. I think it's got some really interesting tactical gameplay of how you do it. I mean, certainly playing Good Cop, I really frustrated my wife with the fact that I kept discarding all the evidence so that she could never see any of the evidence.
Like a true good cop.
Yep.
Did you have the problem though, and either of you, because this is my downfall, and I invented the game, but because you're looking at the evidence card and it's there, you kind of then have to sneakily look at the back to work out which one you've seen. Because a couple of times I've played and I've falsely remembered I've seen the wrong piece of evidence. So then spent the rest of the time trying to find the purple evidence and realised that's the one I'd already seen. It's very frustrating.
Why I discard them because it's the easiest way of seeing the back of the card.
Yeah, because a recent review suggested that we put the colour on the front of the cards as well, which is what we've done for the new release of the game, because it's based at slightly younger members anyway. Or the theme, it's themically more for a younger audience.
So less murder? How do you do a murder mystery for a younger audience?
Well, the game itself is more focused on who stole the Book of Villainy. There is a murder because you got to have it because it's a murder mystery. So the bad fairy has been murdered in order to steal the book. But again, this was tied in. Oh, I'll answer that one. You can email info@afterdarkmurder.co.uk or go on the website www.afterdarkmurder.co.uk or tweet us at After Dark Murder. We're all over the place. What was the question? Oh, yeah. So a lot of the venues, when they were booking shows, the because we took a couple of test foul play lives out in October mid lockdowns, and one of the things that one of the menus said was, "Oh, it's about murder. That won't appeal to the younger audience members." So we said, "Well, you can take the murder out of it and just have it as a theft." So that's what you can do. Because originally the game was 14 plus. Probably the boxes you got, I've got the 14 plus on.
Yeah.
Which
I was saying we were discussing that and thinking that 10 plus is probably about right.
Yeah, we've taken it down to 8 plus. A lot of people said that, and I mean that was partially us being new to the industry as well, because one of the things was regards CE marks and stuff, and they were saying if it's for children you need to go through all this legislation, but if it's for 14 plus you don't need to. So we were like, 14 plus, that's easier, let's just get it out of that. So that's why we did. But a lot of the reviewers and the people who've reviewed, and especially the family bloggers that we've sent the game to, have said, "Oh, our kids love it," and there's pictures of kids playing it. And so we just went, right, well, we'll bite the bullet. We'll get all of the tests done and everything that we need to, and we'll label it 8 plus. Because at the end of the day, part of the legislation is if it's seemingly under 14, but you're marketing it at over 14, you can still get done. So if the game...
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, so it's now 8 plus.
So this other version, when's that due to launch then?
Well, this one we're doing on Kickstarter, because everybody we've spoken to who is a hobbyist or in the games publishing industry, who we spoke to about Foul Play Manor House, said, "Oh, I didn't see it on Kickstarter." And we're like, "No, we didn't play it on Kickstarter." And they were like, "Why not?" It's like, we don't know about these things. So everybody has recommended that we go with Kickstarter for the second version, because they say whether it raises money or not, it's worth a try. You know what I mean? Because that's what a lot of games do, especially as we can run off the popularity of the first one. So we're launching on the 20th of this month.
Yeah, that and Kickstarter in itself is basically an advertising platform, as much as it's good for getting money as well. I imagine that this is a total ballpark estimate, but I imagine that Kickstarter is probably the biggest selling board game site in the world.
Yeah, probably.
Aside from maybe eBay.
Yeah,
I have been doing a lot of research into it, and I can see, and I am kind of shooting myself for thinking, why didn't we use it in the first place? But of course, back then we were on a mad rush to generate some income, and it is a lot of hard work. We've just been putting this together from scratch, having never done it before. It's a lot of hard work trying to get it all right.
I'm pretty impressed that within a year you've managed to go from only running physical events.
Wasn't
it? Yeah. When we want to do something, we do something. But it's kind of, we do this all the time. We go, we want to do that. There was a point many years ago when we said, my life is just peppered with moments of going, I want to do this. When I said, I want to work with Agatha Christie, the company who make the Agatha Christie, and everyone was like, no, my God, we ended up doing it. Another time, I was like, I want to go and perform in Hollywood. And everyone was like, that's going to cost a fortune. But then we ended up doing it. It's just one of those things that I end up going, I want to do this. And then we end up doing it. And then whether we make money out of it or not is a different matter. It's the point that we've done it that it's kind of, I just get these things in my head.
Awesome. Well, I know you've very kindly shared as a lovely little sneak peek of Once Upon a Crime for the head of the launch on Kickstarter. So we'll just give you a quick show of that now. Excellent. I can't wait for that to come out. I think it's another great little one to add to the game. So I can't wait to keep playing those in coffee shops and things when we go out, because it doesn't really take that much space at all.
It's my favourite live show, that one, at the moment as well, because I get to play the Big Bad Wolf. So we all play villains.
Amazing.
And it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
And was it you, Gregor, who said that you had an issue with one of the games where you ended up with all the crime scene cards in the crime scene?
Yes.
Yeah, we've put.
It was like a set of 9 cards that were unusable forever.
we've actually put a new action card in that will stop that happening now, and because you can combine the decks, larger the decks, or swap the action cards around in the decks.
Nice.
So that should stop that happening now. Even though the odds of it happening, we were told, were very low. We've had 2 people who it's happened to now. And another player who emailed to say, I was very disappointed that this occurred in the game. Well, I'll deal the cards again.
I mean, it was kind of interesting because it was when we were playing, it wasn't a good cop, it was a bad cop. So we could still just but there was some piece of evidence there was one piece of evidence and a couple of characters that were also in the crime scene, which just meant that we were limited. Those were never going to come up, we realised eventually.
Yeah. I know that one reviewer spent the game thinking that you had to swap the crime scene cards into the crime scene. They didn't really read the rules properly, so they got in touch and said, this mechanic doesn't work because all the crime scene cards end up in the crime scene, and there's only 6 of those, and 9 of the... And I'm like, yeah, but that's because you played it wrong. So, but rules... how difficult is it to make a game? Rules.
As a rules lawyer, I can say that the rules are sweet and simple. I would say the fact that you can fit it all on 3 cards it's beautiful in its simplicity.
Well, thank you for saying, because a lot of people don't understand them. We had to rethink how we did that. That's another rethink for when the reissues go out, how the rules are translated to the cards. That's why there's so many versions of the rules to download on the website, because so many people got in touch to say, can't quite understand the rules. So we were like, well, download them off the website. They're on the website. There's downloads of them. They're everywhere.
Most of the rules are written on the cards, though, right?
Yeah, the rules are written on the cards as well.
It's very difficult to get it wrong.
Just get him to email George personally. He knows how to play it. Forward him to George. Yeah,
if they are curious, they can, of course, go to our forum on www.doalg.
Oh, nice plug. I didn't even mean to do that. That's great. That's smooth.
That's a professional right there.
So, I'll say, thank you, Ben, for the wonderful game you brought to us. I really look forward to seeing all the rest of your amazing works. And I'll say, I'm sure if any more questions come for you, and got a couple more comments.
First question from Sui.
Now.
Oh,
yes.
I don't wear glasses. It can't be me. Come on, Cat.
It's all about if you're playing as bad cop, it's all about the evidence that you hold in your hand. So they might not have that piece of evidence.
Fair enough.
They might have all the evidence that points to you. You know, it's a man sitting in front of lots of board games, wearing headphones and a black shirt. Sure.
Sumi, who did the artwork for the game? So for Manor House Murder, it was a guy called James Lawrence, and we've used him for years. He's done all our posters for the events, and you can find him on Instagram, Jimmy Dean Sausages. But we've actually used a different artist, illustrator, for Once Upon a Crime. The idea when we came up with this to do the 3 versions was to use a different artist, a different illustrator for every version of the game as well, so it would have its own feel. So Once Upon a Crime is done by Anna Frankisa. So we haven't lined up a 3rd illustrator yet for Night Train to Murder.
Ooh, that definitely sounds interesting. Can't wait. Well, I'm sure you're sticking around in case any other questions come up, and of course, feel free to question us in return. So, Dan, I know we've been playing Root a lot this week, and I think you were going to talk about that
Oh, I'm next.
You are indeed. Throwing you in the hot seat.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, since lockdown and I'm not allowed to see humans, I've been kind of doing digital board games, and it's kind of a good opportunity to play games that I've never actually had a chance to play in real life. And one of them is Root, which is well, what appealed to me was the theme and the artwork. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's very cartoony. It's like all animals in the forest and stuff. I wish we had some pictures. I should have printed off a picture to show you. I'm totally unprepared. But the art is fantastic. Yeah. Basically, it's a war game, but it's all like asymmetrical factions. So you've got 4 different factions in the base game, but they're all very different, which I love. They're all very different. Every faction you play is almost like a completely different game, and they're all still very balanced, which is really good as well. And we've been playing this a bit, haven't we, George? Online?
A little bit over the last few weeks. I think we've had about 3 or 4 games, and
pretty much. And it's
ourselves with the rules.
it's just been a really fun war game. And what else can I really say about it? I've been playing the digital version, and it's quite a good digital adaptation as well. One to look out for. It's the presentation's amazing. It's got really nice animation. You can see all the little animals with swords and bows and arrows fighting each other. There's just loads of nice little touches, like you can click on the animals and trees and they all move as you click them. It's just a really detailed board game. It's really good. Music's nice as well. It's all great. I haven't found any bugs with it. Yeah. So if you have to a digital board game,
I do like the fact that it doesn't try to not be a board game. I think some of the digital adaptations, they just try to be a digital game again. And it's nice that it's just a board game that's been made digital.
Yeah, and very, very well done as well. And they've added loads of single player challenges for you to do, which I love when they add those into kind of games as well. And I mean, in terms of a game, I found it's been quite close, all of our matches. There's no kind of runaway leader as well.
I do like the asymmetry of it as well. All the factions play, or all the parties play so differently.
Yeah, like you've got the cat army, which are kind of they're like the numbers faction. There's loads of them everywhere, cats everywhere, all over the forest. Then you've got the birds, which are a bit they're probably stronger. They get more actions overall, but they're kind of a bit more rigid in their play style. You've got the Woodland Alliance, which are kind of mice and rabbits that have allied to try and take down the oppressors, so they kind of rebel and pop up everywhere all over the map. And then you've got this one little guy who's a raccoon called the Vagabond, and whoever's playing him is basically playing a different game completely. He's just going around doing adventures around the map, just ignoring all these battles going on. He's just got his own objective, and he can help certain sides or go against them. It's really fun.
I said the Vagabond can make a really interesting kingmaker.
Yes, definitely. He can help one side or hinder another, that kind of thing. Obviously, he's trying to win himself. In terms of sorry, go ahead, Gregor.
Have you played any games against the AI or against the bot if you've done the digital adaptation?
Yeah, I've played against AI.
How does that stack up? Is it as much of a challenge as playing George?
Pretty good. It's more trustworthy than George, I'll say that. Less betrayal.
I was playing the Rebel Alliance. What did you expect?
Took down my peaceful cat empire. The AI is actually pretty good. It has a common problem that happens in a lot of digital games where I don't know if it's just me being paranoid, but they seem to pick on the humans quite a lot. I feel like sometimes they don't. There could be one AI faction winning quite clearly, but the AI still decides to all just gang up and beat on you, rather than try and take down the winner. That happened a couple of times, but nothing too major. Like the Vagabond, the AI factions just ignored him, so he was going around doing all his quests, and he won the game. It was only me trying to stop him, that kind of thing. But that's a common thing in a lot of games.
The AI definitely does ignore the Vagabond.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just... Pete asked the question.
Yes. So asking how easy the single player challenges, and are they a good intro for the game?
It varies. There's ones that make it a bit easier or a bit harder. I think they're a good intro for the game. It's a good way of some of them force you to play a faction. So like you can see things from one of the other side's perspectives that you wouldn't normally play as. And they give you like certain restrictions, like you're not allowed to use this type of building. You can only use these buildings, that kind of thing. Just something to make the game a bit more challenging. I've only played a few of them, but they seem okay difficulty-wise.
Yeah, and the tutorials, whilst I think a bit cumbersome at times with yes, I get the idea, I click, I do this. They are at least very good, comprehensive in actually teaching you how to use the game, which is always a good thing.
Oh yeah, the tutorials I thought were pretty good in this game. I've seen some pretty awful digital tutorials, and these are pretty good. I feel quite confident playing all the different factions now. I think if I was trying to learn this myself in real life, it would be a lot more difficult. But now I've got a good idea how to play.
I can tell you from trying when we went to our lovely game cafe pre-COVID to try and play this.
Yeah,
I just couldn't decipher the rules. Admittedly, it was the last thing that we were doing for our time was up.
Imagine
you read the rule book and you're like, okay, I think I get what I'm doing, maybe.
I imagine it's really hard to do because you need to learn 4 different games basically and then teach them to other people that haven't played these games either.
Yeah.
So it's, but the AI, the digital game, obviously you can play with AI people, so they already know the rules and you can learn it yourself. It's a good way of trying out a game. Yeah, apparently. Yeah, it's all pretty good.
Yes.
I'm not sure what else I could say about it, but that's my digital game of the month.
Excellent.
Root, available on Steam and other devices.
Indeed.
We need a sponsor, George. Should we contact Steam? I'm doing a lot of work for them.
Yeah, we might as well. I'll say, it never hurts to ask the question, does it?
Pretty much. Oh, just got a question from Chris. There we go. Without a rules lawyer. Ooh. Is that a question? Any tips?
I think that is a question. So, what would your tips be? Because I obviously am a rules lawyer, so it's difficult for me to comment on that one.
It's a big question, really. It's any tips to help people learn new games? I guess you just got to not throw too much at them to begin with. When I'm teaching a new game, I tend to just do like, this is the main objective. This is how you normally go and achieve this objective. And then I just kind of step through my moves as I do them. I kind of play on easy mode, that kind of thing. I don't brutally crush the newbies like George does in his games.
I just give you a realistic expectation of what a winning score looks like.
Exactly.
I think that when it comes to teaching people new rules, the easiest thing to do is skip to the end. What does the end of the game look like? What's the goal? And then, like, a lot of rule books are worded sort of progressively, if that makes sense. Like, they're worded like a story. So first you do, or instructions. First you do this, then you do this. But as a player, what you want to know is, how do I win? And then I can worry about following the rules after that.
Yeah, I say the first thing is always your objective.
Yeah.
I mean, funnily enough, we were looking for a new game the other day, and I went. People have recommended Arkham to us, one of the Arkham games, and I went on it and I looked at and I started to watch the tutorial playthrough, and I just glazed. I'm kind of a game. I play games that kind of need low-level rules. I thought, I'm never going to get this. I'm never ever, without somebody sat there with me, talking me through this for like several play runs, I'm never going to understand what I'd have to do at any given point. So I think some people don't have the capacity to learn very complicated games.
No, that's very valid. I think you do need a lot of human interaction with these type of games. I think especially the more complicated ones.
And certainly when we all do come out of our various lockdowns, I'm sure that we'll all be able to get back into our game cafes, which they are a wonderful resource because most of the guys who run these things have played everything that's in there at least several dozen times. And most of them are more than happy to answer any questions for you. I mean, I know in Sheffield we use Treehouse quite a lot. And they, I mean, to be fair, I think they enjoy answering questions and getting involved in your games as much as anything else. It means they don't have to be behind the bar for 5 minutes.
I've just seen a comic from Pete. Don't know if we can see that one. Yeah. Yeah, that's always annoying. If you play a game, oh, that was easy, and then you realise, oh, did it wrong. I've played it the other way. I played it the other way wrong though, where I've been brutally destroyed by a board game, then realised I made it a lot harder than it needed to be. So it does go either way. I once played Battlestar Galactica with you meant to have 2 Cylons maximum, and I had 4 against 2 humans, and it was the most bloody game I've ever experienced.
Yes, it would be.
Pretty much. I don't think we made like a single jump. Well, no, we made like 2 jumps probably, but yeah.
Yeah, we ended up winning our first play of Forbidden Island because we kept keeping tiles in the flood deck once they'd been out flooded, whereas they should have been removed from the game. So we got extra turns, which we shouldn't have done. So,
yeah.
Yes.
That is.
Well, so I might as well take the next slot, and so I'm going to be talking about Tiny Epic Galaxies this month. It is a lovely little small box game, perfect just to throw in the bottom of your coffee table. I wouldn't quite call it, use Gregor's term of the amuse-bouche of games, because it's still quite a hefty game, just in a smallish box. I say it's got a wonderful expansion called Beyond the Black, which basically just adds a whole couple of new extra levels of gameplay in. And I really love this game. You are explorers trying to colonize planets. You have your tiny little space empires. It's great. It's tactically devious. Just little things like that. Every action you do, that your enemies can always, if they've got enough culture, can follow you, so they can get extra actions in, and you can't just assume that you're going to win. I know I took it on holiday with us because, again, it's so easy to do, and it's quite quick and easy to teach as well. And, of course, Pete's saying, yes.
He's a Cylon sympathiser. Flush him out of the airlock, honestly.
Yes. Flushing him out of the airlock.
Anyway, sorry, George, as you were.
Yes, no, it's good. It's nice to have our users commenting. It's great to see you interacting with us. So yeah, Tiny Epic Galaxies. You run your little space empires. You go around, and yeah, it's got great artwork. It's compact. It's easy to play. I think the expansion does add a lot of extra depth because it adds 2 huge new elements to the game, where you have pilots and customizable ships. Or that there are special ships that they introduce. And exploring out into the unknown space. And yeah, Toaster Pete.
What kind of game is it, George? Did I miss it? Is it a deck builder, or is it how would I decide?
I'd say it's closest to a resource management.
Okay.
But basically, you roll dice each turn to determine what actions you get, and
I see.
So, and as you build up, you get more resources, but the resources don't do huge amounts other than improving. But you're getting the right actions and managing your power resources to re-roll to get the actions you need to claim the planets, which give you the points. But it's just balancing everything as you go up, and the more you advance your civilization, the more dice you roll, the more ships you have available, and whatnot. We generally play it 2 players because I have 2 people in our household,
including yourself.
But yes, fortunately, including just myself and my lovely wife. But I'd say we have played it with more, and I think it's absolutely great with more players. I say it comes with enough meeples and things to do up to 4 players. If you were prepared to, hodgepodge some things together, I don't see it would break anything if you had up to, well, as many players as you could fit around your table. If you've got enough pieces to cobble something together to do it. And yeah, I think I love it. I just love it.
Sounds good.
Yes, I will have to play it with you sometime when we can actually see each other again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, since no one's pestering me, I'll pass over to Gregor to talk about. I think you said you were talking about Thurn and Taxis this week.
Yes. So Thurn and Taxis. I knew that. So after this bit, we were going to do a discussion about sort of what are we were looking at Board Game Geek's top 100 games, and basically what are the best games ever. And I think this is probably one of my favourite games ever. Basically, it's initially when I'm going to describe the concept. It might not sound very interesting. Bear with me. Basically. You are running a post office network in a late medieval Germany, and it gets more exciting from there. Let me switch camera. There we go. So basically, hopefully you can see the board at least at a certain angle. But it's a game for up to 4 players, and again, like we were talking about that simplicity thing. It is as simple as you draw a card. You play a card, and then if you want to score your route that you've planned out on this lovely map, then you can do that. But what I like about it is there's a lot of variation. So you can get support from officials. You can pick one official in your turn. So you might want to play an extra card or draw an extra card. Or you can exchange the display of cards here. So there's a display of 6 cards that you can draw from or randomly from the deck. And yeah, the aim of the game is to score as many points as possible. What I like about it is that there's so many different ways of doing that. So you can get points for scoring all of the town, having a post office in all of the towns in the region. You can score points for having routes of a certain length. You can score points for having one post office in every region. There's lots of different ways to accumulate points. The other thing is that the game end is based on the first person to get to a route length of 7 and claim the carriage that says you've got a route length of 7. Once someone's got that card, it goes to the end of the round, and that's the end of the game. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how quickly you might want to, or someone, for example, you might be trying to go for a long route, but someone who's playing lots of little routes is going to overtake you and force the end of the game. But yeah, I really like it because it's really simple, but it's got all these, there's so many ways of playing it that even on a fairly basic map, it's very entertaining. I can show you an example turn because I know that's a very static image. This is real. So, for example, I could play a turn of Zurich, Augsburg. They all have to be connected on the map. Kempten. Anyone who's familiar with German geography, I'm sure, is having a great time right now. Ingolstadt, Stuttgart, and Karlsruhe. And then basically, once you've played that, you can either, in the routes that you've played, decide to build one in each town. Build one in each region that you've got a town in. So, for example, I could choose to build in Zurich, Augsburg, Karlsruhe, and Stuttgart. Let me move those up so they're somewhat in shot. Or you can play all of the cards, put a house in all of the cards in the same region, so Augsburg, Kempten, and Ingolstadt. So again, there's, even when people are trying to stop you, there's ways of being creative and playing with the board so that you can still come out and win. And also I really like the art on the cards as well. My understanding is that the art on the cards, all of the buildings, there's an individual one for every city, and they represent an actual building that is in said city, which I think is a lovely detail. And there's a whole pamphlet as separate to the rulebook, which is a fairly basic 4-page affair. There is a whole pamphlet that just describes the history of the founding of the postal services in Germany by a man called Franz von Taxis, which is great. Great name. But yeah, and it's also got a lovely thick cardboard, proper little rules card as well, so you can see at any time the 4 different officials that can help you out. But yeah, that's Thurn and Taxis. I
Cool.
really enjoy it, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, definitely.
I love the components. It looks really nice. It's
yeah. I'll play a little.
Nice little wooden houses. Yep. Wooden post
what
offices.
What I probably didn't explain is that, so basically, the quicker you do things, the more victory points you get. So, for example, if I was to play this route and place a house in Zurich, for example, I'd then have, on this layout, a house in a post office in all of the 3 cities that are in this region. Therefore, I would get the first victory token here, which would be 3 points. If someone had beaten me to that, they'd have taken that 3-point token, and I'd only get 2 points, and so on and so forth. There are more points for doing bigger regions. There's also, same again for lengths of routes. So you get, if you do a 7 route first, you get 4 points, 3, 2, 1, and so on. But yeah, there's lots of ways to win, lots of fun to be had.
Sounds
cool.
good.
You say this is. Oh, sorry, go, George.
Yeah, how long do you reckon an average game takes then, Gregor?
It depends who you're playing it with, obviously. I would say that if you've got people who are familiar with the rules, an average game shouldn't take you more than about half an hour.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
You say it's your favourite game, do you, Gregor?
Yeah, I think so. That on balance, there's nothing about it where I'm like, oh, that could be tweaked or that could be improved. I think that it's just it ticks all the boxes for me in terms of being a game that is simple. It's really easy to teach, and there's, like I say, there's so many outcomes and so many different ways that you can play the game that it can be very entertaining.
It looks good. Yeah, I like those kind of games where you can kind of plan your route and kind of just tally up points as you go and stuff. It's pretty good.
But then also people, if you're going, for example, if you wanted to get all the cities in Bayern and get 5 victory points for doing so, obviously other people can beat you to doing that. Or someone might aim for getting the states that have fewer towns and therefore earn more points while you're messing around trying to get all the cards to build a route that covers every city in Bayern.
That sounds good.
Very cool.
It'll be very interesting to play it at some point.
How often do you get to play this one then, Gregor?
Well, I don't know what time is anymore.
Time has no meaning.
Yeah. It's difficult to say.
Oh, good question for Ben there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, naturally, the board game that, in fact, I collect these. I was talking about this the other day. I actually collect Cluedo. And you might think, how can you collect Cluedo? But there are hundreds of versions of Cluedo. I don't necessarily know if it's my favorite game anymore, but there's so many different rules and formats and versions of Cluedo I mean, I went through the cupboard the other day and found some really old ones. So we have, in fact, been playing Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs recently, and Escape from Atlantis, which has brought back memories of old. I've had an old Hero Quest in there as well that one of my hobbyist friends clamoured to get hold of because all the figures weren't painted. So I let that go. But I'm more of a, definitely Murder Mystery Cluedo based fan. I'm not so much of a hobbyist. As you know, we're new to the board gaming industry, so I'm not as hobbyist as you guys in the more intricate games. Well, I was actually thinking, while you were talking about teaching people games, well, what would you say are gateway games? Obviously, you've got the standard games, which are on the shelf of every entertainer, but then you've got the hobbyist games.
I'd probably say,
I think that's just become the discussion point for the night. I think we can park the top 100. That's a good discussion point. All by
good gateway
itself.
games.
That gives us more time to play more games on the top 100 list.
It does, yeah. I think Pandemic is a good gateway game. I think that's the game I kind of introduce. Like people that are more used. They're more used to like the classical games like Monopoly or Cluedo or anything. if I want to try and show any of these more complex ones, I tend to start them off on like Pandemic. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. I think it's fairly straightforward, but something a bit different.
I think for me, it very much depends on the genre that you're trying to introduce them to. I like Pandemic as an introduction to cooperative games.
Yes, true. It's a co-op game.
Mm-hmm. I still can't. I know it's the game of choice, but I still love Catan as an introduction to sort of.
Oh yeah, Catan's a great choice. Catan is a great choice.
Not too complicated to learn, but takes a while to get the strategy down completely. And
what are the age ratings of these?
Catan will be quite young, I think.
I'm pretty sure they do a junior Catan as well.
Yeah, they do a junior Catan.
There is a junior Catan, yes.
Because I was thinking, with mentioning and saying I've been in there and got Hero Quest and Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs and Escape from Atlantis and those games, those were my kids' games when I was like 8, 9, 10. But anything geared at 8, 9, 10-year-olds now doesn't seem to have that level of strategy or, competition within it. It all seems to be a lot more dumbed down because we have a 7-year-old. So obviously we're playing these games with him. There's nothing quite as... And those, in my mind, seem to be quite a gateway to more complicated games back in the day. Whereas nowadays there doesn't seem to be anything that you could lead a 7-year-old into board game hobbying.
I think Catan would work pretty well for a 7-year-old. I think, it's nothing too intense. It's just a bit of trade. You learn to trade cards because you need to get certain cards to build like a road or a house, and then you trade sheep for grain, all that kind of thing. And there's dice. There's dice involved as well.
Anything where the rules sort of can slowly build, or rather than you having to do a long explanation at the start, is a good gateway game. I was going to suggest Carcassonne as an example of a good gateway game.
You literally just stole my words out of my mouth. I'll say that was actually the game which got me back into the hobby when I played it on a drunken night out with. Technically, it was before the drunken night out, whilst we were hanging out in the flat beforehand. But
I just want to give a shout out
or not. Well, jury's still out on that one. But I think that it's a good gateway game because the other thing that I think some people don't play it this way, but it's actually in the rules of Carcassonne that players can show the piece that they draw to other players to get help and advice and assistance. So even though it is a competitive game, you're allowed to ask for help, and it doesn't diminish the game in any way if you need to show someone the tile that you've just drawn.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Quick shout out to Amy, who got her 89-year-old grand to play Pandemic. Well done, Amy.
Yes, indeed.
I've got some family members playing Pandemic as well, but I haven't gone for an 89-year-old yet, so good work. That's pretty good.
So, another good couple of suggestions from our commenters. Suri's suggesting Flux. I say, whilst not a board game, still a lovely another tabletop card game.
I've Night Terrors from Flux. I wouldn't recommend that.
No, but I think
it's a good gateway game. Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with you, Suri.
It is a good game, but the reason that I didn't name it as a gateway game is because I think that like Flux is one of those things that people can bring out at a party, and that might be the only game that anyone ever plays. That's why I went for Carcassonne, because actually I think that's a game where once you've played it, you see another variant of Carcassonne, or you get to see a starter pack, and you go, "Oh, that looks cool." And then 10 years later, you've got the Carcassonne big box, and you spent £200.
Yeah, Carcassonne kind of expand that way. Yeah, Flux is all right. I'd probably play Flux if I was drunk.
I really haven't got Carcassonne big box set on the thing. I haven't deliberately gone out and gone out to get the old sets of most of the things just so that they've got the matching tiles, because depending on which editions of Carcassonne you've got, they change from a red roof to a blue roof, and I have gone out of my way where possible to try and get the matching tiles.
I respect that. That's a good decision.
I agree with Pete there as well. That's a good example of gateways there. The Forbidden Island game's good for co-op. Love Letter's a good simple card game, and Werewolf's kind of a good social deduction game there. I think.
Oh, you could play Thurn and Taxis as well. That's really good.
Oh yeah, good introduction game. Yeah.
I was right. What I didn't realise is on the back of here, I was right. All of it actually has a list of all the buildings that are on the cards and what they are in each of the individual cities. And it's on some of them. It actually tells you like what street they're on or whatever. So you can go. That'd be an interesting idea for like a podcast or a video series. Go and find all the buildings that are on the Thurn and Taxis cards.
That does sound cool, Maria.
I'll put that in my list of ideas that I never make good on. But
I think Greg is sponsored by Thurn and Taxis.
It's out of print. I can't be.
It's limited edition. Wow.
I think it's out of print.
I had another comment from Pete saying Munchkin was a good gateway game. Yeah, that was one of the first modern board games I played. Was Munchkin. It's probably I probably wouldn't want to play it now though. I think. Again, unless I was drunk. It's kind of got the same issue as Flux, where it can be fun, but the way it's designed, it can either last 20 minutes or 3-4 hours. And it's like Flux is the winning objective changes almost every round, so it's almost impossible to plan ahead. And
depending on the edition of Flux, it gets some of the editions are really awkward to finish off.
Yeah. So Munchkin's got the same problem. It's kind of half an hour of fun stretched over multiple hours. I think I would describe Munchkin as these days. Is Chris suggesting Battlestar Galactica as a gateway game?
I was going to say the fact Chris is has genuinely suggested Battlestar Galactica. No, Battlestar Galactica is not a gateway game.
Start them at the deep end, Chris.
But I would agree, Lords of Waterdeep is quite a good introduction to resource management games, and
ticket to ride.
Do you find you have to skip back then? So like you get a gateway game to like I don't know, like a role-playing game, for example, just to use a simple one, and then you go all the way through that, and then you go, I fancy playing co-op. Do you then, as hobbyists, have to leap back to almost a gateway game in that style, or once you've learnt one format, do you find you're getting higher up? You don't need as much, entry-level stuff to get into new formats or styles or whatever of games. Once you've kind of become an expert in one, do you become an expert in all of them?
I think you kind of get increased knowledge of all the other games, don't you, George? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of those ones where I say for a rules lawyer, I think it's not good for me to comment because I think I can then, having started to understand the style of modern board games, you then pick up the rules for other things easier. But I tend to go with I see something I like and I deliberately go out and look for other people playing things first and go, ooh, I like that. And I always like to have a taste before you buy out there. And I'll say either ourselves or one of the other very many lots of review people out there on YouTube and the rest of the wider web have a number of playthrough videos and things like that. And I think it's there are more games out there than you can throw a stick at. And I think find the genre that works for you and just start exploring. There's so much material out there thanks to the joys of the internet to support getting into the hobby. If you want,
I think there's a lot of it's a major focus when a lot of people are reviewing stuff. Most reviews of games will talk about how easy it is for a new player to understand it as well. Yeah. It's the only sort of hobby that I'm aware of where they talk in detail about what it would be like for someone new to the hobby to join. Like, you don't pick up a car magazine. It's like, this is a good idea. If you want to get into cars, try this car. It's a Ford Focus or whatever. That's not.
I think it's a good point. I think board games are designed to allow newbies to get into them generally. Apart from like Arkham Horror or whatever you play, Ben, because that is a known monstrous game that can last like 6 to 8 hours. If you can remember.
Yeah, I think it was that one. It was just, basically, I was a huge Bat geek when I was younger, so Arkham just leapt out at me as well. And I was like, I want that. And then I looked at it and thought, I like this kind of genre of stuff, so I'll have a look anyway. It's not Batman, but I like this genre, so I'll have a look. And I was like, There's no way. My husband certainly wouldn't have sat down for that long. He's like short, sharp, quick games, something that's not too taxing. So that instantly went in the no pile.
Don't blame you. It's a monster. That one.
Yes.
Just to briefly answer your question, I still play the gateway games. They're still fun. Not everything needs to be a monster. I still play Pandemic, and I'd play Catan if I had the chance. They're still good games.
I say we play Catan 2 players, even though it's not playable as 2 players.
I think the thing with a lot of the successful gateway games as well is that the reason that hobbyists tend to go back to them is because they've got expansions, they've got other ways of playing them that mean that the game can constantly feel fresh or new or something like that. Like Catan Catan's got loads of expansions. Carcassonne has a box that that's massive and doesn't even contain all of them.
Waterdeep's got a couple of expansions. Carcassonne has about 14 expansions. If I remember my count correctly. Catan has, I've lost count of the number. I think the problem with Catan is understanding where it becomes an expansion and where it becomes a reprint and when it becomes a different edition,
a different version,
or a skin. But there's so many different variations on a lot of these games that you can tweak it around whatever suits you.
This is an interesting discussion. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm afraid we've probably hit the time limit.
Yes, we are. Just
come on, George, rein him in.
Take
command.
Tonight, indeed. Thank you very much for keeping me on track there, Mr. Dan. But yes, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight for episode 7 of Let's Talk Board Games. Thank you very much to Ben for joining us and telling us all about foul play. And of course,
for letting me interview you.
Yeah,
about your favourite Game Boy games.
Good to meet you, Ben.
So, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and of course, catching up with us on our website, www.doalg.co.uk. And if you fancy supporting the channel, feel free to donate. There is a lovely little link at the bottom of the page. Anything that you do means that we can produce more content, get more reviews out there for you, and every little helps. Join us again next month for where we've got Nomad Games joining us. Until next time, play more games.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.